Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Meher and I will be your host for the webinar today. Our webinar today focuses on the booming world of user experience through the lens of the expert. Our webinars are designed to gain insight into the field of mobility, which is in fact becoming an essential part of our daily life. As of today, Endeavour has helped several Fortune 500 companies in setting up mobility initiatives and keeping up to speed while emphasizing on the ease of use and an interactive and impressive UX. Why Endeavour? Because we are solely a mobility focused organization with more than 250 experts with 10 years of experience in the niche of mobility. We are the leaders in providing mobility solutions to over 300 customers, including many Fortune 100 companies across the globe, and enabling them to leverage various mobility options. Today, we will have a 45-minute session followed by a 15-minute Q&A. Please feel free to raise any questions in between the presentation by typing them in your GoToWebinar console. At the end of the presentation, our panelists will answer as many questions as possible. The webinar recordings will be made available on techendeavour.com/webinars. I repeat, techendeavour.com/webinars. At the end of the webinar today, we have a small surprise for all our listeners today. Our topic for the day is Role of UX in Mobility Landscape. It will be presented by Tom Parrish, who is a mobile strategy thought leader. We also have an esteemed guest speaker, Kevin Benedict, who is an enterprise mobility analyst and an SAP mentor. We also have with us Hitesh, the head of user experience team at Endeavour Technologies. Now, I would like to invite Tom to take us through the webinar today. Over to you, Tom.
All right, let's get started. Thank you, Meher, for such a gracious introduction. And many thanks to each of you for being on the webinar today with us. I appreciate you taking your time from your schedule to listen. I know each of you are probably very busy here during the week. Personally speaking, I find this topic of user experience fascinating because of the rapid adoption of mobile devices in our day-to-day lives. All right, so let's talk about the agenda. To begin, when I use the term UX, that also means user experience, and I'll be using that throughout the webinar. The first item is, what is the importance of user experience? Why is UX the most gung-ho topic in today's information world? We'll be covering that. Then, the user experience definition. What are the perceptions about UX definition? And what does Endeavour's UX Lab have in the way of a definition? Based on our experiences in user interface design and building applications over the last few years. The third item in the agenda is mobile user experience approach. Lots of people are exploring UX and the overall process of design as it relates to it. We will cover a generic methodology of mobile user experience. Do's and don'ts. There's going to be a summary of what we've gained from our past experiences. I think you'll find that most helpful. And finally, not on the agenda there, but will be in the webinar, is a very special guest at the end. His name is Kevin Benedict, and he's a mobility expert. Kevin is going to talk about his insights around new user interface technologies and how these technologies will further impact our view of the user experience. All right, let's move on to item number 1. the importance of user experience. So I'm going to begin with this particular slide that emphasizes the importance of user experience in the mobility world and new dimensions in the information world. We're going to be talking about brand versus experience awareness. Let's face it, the experience of your device that you're creating and that user interface experience is going to have an impact on your brand. And we'll talk about what better design means and have a comparative example for you on that. And the importance of the environmental aspects of the experience on the human brain and perception. You know, there's new dimensions of touch that are being brought into the user experience and the designs that this impacts. And these create lasting impressions of the user experience as it relates to how we use our senses. So I have a question for you. Where do you think experience starts? Experience starts with awareness. The communication of the awareness of the product and the user interface and the user experience. These all go into product design. Creating awareness of your brand, your products, your company, your service through the quality of the user experience. It's one of the most important aspects of the design communication, how that gets communicated in the user experience. A well-made, simple design is always better than a complex design that is poorly executed. Now, by this time, everyone's probably seen an iPad, maybe even used one, maybe you own one. So you have a sense of what that's like now from a new perspective that Apple has brought in place. If you think of the iPad as a wonderful design language, note that simple design does not mean a blank canvas, but rather it conveys design that is clear and better for the particular purpose that it has in mind. This is one of the very most important aspects of user experience in this cluttered world of information age that we're in the competition for media and advertising and social media channels, all of these coming into a kind of mobile solution that needs to be considered for your organization or your brand expression. Now let's have a practical experience of what one can experience when engaging with the environment. Take a look at this picture. What do you see in this room that's been specifically designed in the way it is right now? Take the whole environment in mind as you're looking at it, what's being shown, how it's lit, things of that nature. Wow. Now notice how this looks. What was your experience of this picture when it came up? What first came into your awareness about it? To create this wow factor using different environmental factors to engage user perception is how we help provoke expectations and desires for a better user experience. So looking at this from a mobility perspective, take a look at this picture. Maybe as those fingers are touching those particular aspects of the screen, maybe what the user is experiencing is some confirmation that he's about to do something on the screen and that's the right way to do it. Based on what he's seeing, what he's touching, and within the context of what he's doing, he has a sense of what's going to happen next. In today's world, how about bringing symbolic gestures or physical language to create a more engaging solution? That's where we're going. That's what we have. Let's take a closer look at this. So let's take a look at why this would be so important and what are the opportunities on offer here with regards to creating new types of user experiences with this more environmental approach to activating different senses. You know, as you can imagine, there are more parameters or dimensions that one can define in the world of user experiences and mobility, and when you keep in mind the kinds of devices that we're seeing being brought to the market now. But ultimately, all these applied parameters should create moments to connect people for a better mobile lifestyle. That's the key here. I'm going to say that one more time. Ultimately, all these applied parameters should create moments to connect people for a better mobile lifestyle. This is very important to establish relationship between physical world and the digital world and its access. It's not just between you and the machine, it's you, how you're interacting with the machine, and how that relates to what you're doing with someone else at the same time. So far, I've been talking about why it's important to have an emphasis on user experience. Now let's move to the next slide, where we're going to talk more about the definition of user experience. But before moving on to user experience, I have something to remind you. We really encourage you to ask questions. There's a couple of opportunities for that. One, during the webinar here, you can actually put some text into the little chat window, lower right-hand side. We'll be monitoring that during the course of this webinar as it's in real time. And at the end of the webinar, there's an opportunity to actually ask the question live. So keep in mind you have those two on offer there for you to take advantage of, and we really encourage it. This is a very broad topic. There's a lot of new terms. Some of it can be rather abstract in nature, so it's important that you get answers to your questions. Feel free to ask those. User experience. Remember, UX stands also for user experience during this webinar. And this is all in the context of the mobility field, designing for mobile devices. Number one, user experience design is the same as user interface. Actually, user experience design is a holistic design that covers more than just the user interface. It is about the user interface, of course, but it incorporates a lot of user research, design study, prototypes, usability, and a number of other things of this nature that we're going to be mentioning further in the webinar. So it's a more comprehensive view. Number two, user experience design is to create animation and interactivity. Fair enough. Many people think that, but many people think to bring some kind of animation or interactivity to context, that's simply what the user experience design is all about. But in fact, user experience is about creating a contextual experience. Context drives interactivity and the level of importance from one context to the next. That's a little headier perspective, but that's really what it's about. And if you think about using your iPad or your Android or whatnot, and as you're moving down through the structure that each app gives you to get access to more detail or different view of what's going on in the app, you know, how you're using the device, what you touch, and what you do with it is very much based on the context of what you're trying to accomplish. Number three, user experience is about usability to perform a task. Simple. It's just about getting things done. Well, it's not just about usability or to create a better task flow. User experience is the usability of the actual task, and this also brings the hidden value of the user's actual needs rather than just his wants. For instance, if you're using a map, you need to know the directions to get somewhere, but what you really want is to get there and have that experience of getting there to be accurate so you don't have to drive around because of the map was so difficult to use on the device, or it wasn't updating quickly enough, or things of that nature. So really, what you want is to get to your destination safely and efficiently and quickly. It's not just using the device to look at the directions. Number four, a differentiator of selling products or services. Well, you could partially agree this, but in fact, the user experience creates better value proposition to make it more usable and desirable product and service. It's the visual appeal or the look aspect of the design that's going to make a difference. Number five, user experience is the same for all platforms and resolutions. Not so. In fact, we need to follow user behavior as well as human interface design guidelines of particular technologies to maintain better usability. At the same time, we need to create holistic user experiences across the platform to make a consistent brand value of the products and services. So, the device needs to have a consistent way in which it's used from one device to the next for the entire brand and product line that you have. And you get a sense of that in the Apple world. You get a sense of that in the Android world. But if you've got a number of apps that are related to your products and services, how consistent are they in the way they work and the way someone will use them? And most importantly, how consistent is the user experience in using different apps from your company? And number 6, it's all about jazz. The marketing and sales guys will say, give us a user experience that's jazzy and exciting. And you do want that, but you don't want that to be the primary goal. I'll bet you that you have some apps that you're using now on whatever device that you have that you thought looked cool, had a great promise, and the screens come up and they are a bit razzle-dazzle, but you never really get back to using the app because it wasn't really very useful in the context of what you were trying to get accomplished with the app. So just having it look cool doesn't always make it work well. Okay, now that we've set a baseline understanding about various myths and facts with regards to UX in the mobility field, let's press on here with regards to the UX definition and look at some varying models that people have created in this area. Peter Morville's honeycomb model is what we're going to start with first. This is a very useful, practical perspective. We can't be content to paint within the lines drawn by managers, is one of his common things to say. We must have the courage and creativity to ask whether our products and systems are useful and apply our deep knowledge of craft and medium to define innovative solutions that are more useful. In the usable area, ease of use remains vital, and yet the interface-centered methods and perspectives of human-computer interaction do not address all the dimensions of web design. In short, usability is necessary but not sufficient. About the desirable part, our quest for efficiency must be tempted by an appreciation for the power and value of image, identity, brand, and other elements of design. Findable? Well, we must strive to design navigable websites and locate objects so that users can find what they need. Accessible. Just as our buildings have elevators and ramps, our website should be accessible to people with disabilities, which is more than 10% of the population, more than you might think. Today, it's good business and it's the ethical thing to do. Eventually, it will become the law. Credible. Thanks to the Web Credibility Project, we're beginning to understand design elements that influence whether users trust and believe what we tell them. And valuable. Our sites must deliver value to our sponsors. For nonprofits, the user experience must advance the mission. For-profit companies, it must contribute to the bottom line and improve customer satisfaction. All right, let's go to Jesse James Garrett's model for user experience. The web was originally conceived as a hypertextual information space. That's one we're all familiar with. But the development of increasingly sophisticated front-end and back-end technologies have fostered its use as a remote software interface, if you think about it. This dual nature has led to some confusion. User experience practitioners have attempted to adopt their terminology to cases beyond the scope of its original application. The goal of Jesse James' elements of design is to define some of these terms within their appropriate context and to clarify the underlying relationships among the various elements. And finally, Endeavour's model for user experience, in particular in the mobility field. It's the sum of effective utility, usability, and desirability. So I want to talk more about Endeavour's core disciplines of mobility for UX. Let's start at 12 o'clock there in the red, user research. User research, it's about understanding the people who use a product or system through observations. Design strategy, plan for the creation and delivery and governance of useful, usable content. Yeah, that's back to the context piece. What's the content going to be? Where's it going to be used? Who's going to be responsible for it? How long is it going to live on the web? And where is it going to go? And how are you going to create that content? That's part of what the user experience is going to be involved with. That's an important part of the design strategy. Information architecture, identifying and organizing information within a product or a system in a purposeful and meaningful way. Interaction design, designing the interactive behaviors of a product or system with a specific focus on their use. Okay? And visual design, designing the visual qualities of a product or system in an aesthetically pleasing way. Finally, the usability study, measuring the quality of a user experience when interacting with a product or a system. Remember, it's not just about what they need, it's about what they want in the end with regards to that user experience and the user design that you're coming up with. So we talked so far about why user experience is important and what are the various definitions of user experience. Now we're going to move into how to implement or create a better design. What's the process? And if you're following along here from your experience in designing, you're right. We're actually going to be moving into talking about methodology and how it should be used. So onward to how we approach designing for the mobile user experience. Here is the generic process of user experience in mobility. Understand and analysis, design, and test. I'll explain each one briefly. In this step of understand and analysis, we understand the context and the objective of the application and what is the core value of the business usage. In design, the design stage is the most creative part of this process. This is where you create a storyboard based on the user experience and behavior study to create better solutions in terms of information architecture and visual design. The more quantities of variations of ideas that you try out, the more likely you're going to be moving toward a quality design. Also, one of the important points is to validate the design by creating a prototype to confirm the best direction you've come up with as you've worked through all the various options that have come up in the iterations that you've considered so far. Okay, testing. This stage is all about testing as you narrow in on a design solution that you feel is a good fit in terms of usability, user scenario, or user cases, as well as a fit for the quality analysis around how responsive the design is. And also based on this, you can again iterate design solutions to reduce lead time of development and, of course, aim for better solutions in the overall design effort. Okay, the objective study. This helps to understand the business domain of the problem during conversations and interviews with the stakeholders. The idea is you get a number of people from different groups throughout the business organization, in addition to the key decision makers, to get a more holistic view of what it is they want and where they're going with it. You want a kickoff meeting. This is more of an open forum. You want to listen and understand more and more about what they're going for so you can begin incorporating their inputs in the user experience design process. Also, to just basically understand all the aspects of the challenges, the limitations, the technology, the timeline, the unstated problems that are there that only come through the nuance of conversation. So yes, focus group study and user interviews help us to focus on the core objective, and the contextual inquiry helps us to understand the usage scenario and behavior of each user. That takes time, but that's what gets you closest to being able to fully understand what the user experience needs to be based on what you're being told. Okay, let's understand contextual study. What is that going to do for us? The user experience is all about contextual experience. And as we study the user and their behavior by sheer observation and one-to-one and focus group type studies, We seek to understand their cultural associations and the usage patterns, social behaviors, and a deeper understanding of the environmental context of the business problem at hand with regards to usage and focus. So the contextual study is a great way to differentiate requirements of wants versus actual needs. And this type of study can help us reveal opportunities for unique solutions to surface in the design process. And from Endeavor's experience, it often leads to some rather amazing innovation in the user experience for the final product. So given all of this well thought out design process, I still believe design is a very subjective effort. So I love this phrase, what to design, as design is subjective. So what do we focus on? Where do we focus? What's the solution? To focus on design direction, let's create personas to focus and observe user behavior with different methodologies. Let's convert or translate our study and analysis of user research, objective, and context to design exploration. Now you can kind of see how this is all coming together. All right, now let's go have some fun. Get your paper and pencils out. We get to sketch and have fun and try different ideas around, draw lots of lines and zeros and boxes and squares. The idea, though, is to exercise an old truth within the design world. The more times you can iterate the design, the better design you're going to have. Iteration is the best method of design. Next step is to create a wireframe. Now, the wireframe doesn't have to be physical wireframe. We need just a tool for communicating design direction, the information architecture, the navigational flow. It's very common to actually print out little copies of the screen itself and move things around on the screen. Whatever you need to sort of get in mind the reality of what the design is going to start looking like. This is an important stepping stone in getting a design that's very effective in its utility and its usability. So let's get more into the visual appeal and the visual ergonomics. Here are the elements of successful visual design for your reference. 1. Layout. All about grid, space, proportion, and hierarchy of information, how things are grouped, images, structure, and so forth. Typography, one of the most important elements of visual design. It defines readability. How easily readable is it? What's its legibility? And in short, how easily viewable is the design? Color. It gives life to a blank canvas. Yes, color. It plays its valuation sets through the tones and gradations of colors of what people like and what they don't like. It all depends on the context and, of course, on cultural aspects of it all depends on the contextual and cultural aspects of usage and response. Nevertheless, to make it a successful visual design, the hidden agenda or navigation has to be clear and responsive. Here, usability plays a very good role in the definition of responsive visual design. So, we talked about step 2, design. Now let me talk about test, step 3. So once we develop an actual application, after coding, the testing phase really helps us to understand the actual user behavior in certain environments. You just don't know until you test it, right? We use different kinds of usability testing, such as user interview, focus group review, out-of-room study, heat map study, actual motion and environmental studies. This helps us to avoid any assumptions of design decision, as well as it helps to improve the overall quality of the user experience. Do's and don'ts. All right, so we've done wireframes, we've done prototypes, we've done user testing. How do we boil all this down to some real clear do's and don'ts? Let's talk about it. Here's a do. Consider use cases as well to solve problems rather than just requirements. In other words, how's the device going to be used in different places, in different times, for different reasons, and who are the different kinds of people that might be using it? In other words, don't just assume a need and that's going to be used by one person in one particular location. Seems like an obvious point to make, but it's important to keep turning it over and keep asking, what are all the use cases that we're going to be considering here? Plan for flexibility, but then don't use custom controls often. Try to incorporate flexibility in the design without there being unique, highly custom solutions or fixes for each particular area that the user goes into the user interface. Understand the platform guidelines. A quick sketch prototype is really helpful. This way you get feedback, things can be changed more quickly, people's ideas of what the design is going to look like and work start to come together in a more unified way across everyone in the design team. Use default design elements of platforms and actions. In other words, don't always be coming up with new things. Try to use that. That's back to the understanding the platform guidelines. Stay within the guidelines. Clear and intuitive designs will reduce the amount of time it takes to learn an app. You've picked up apps with the iPhone and you've used them immediately, and then you've picked up other apps and you've just realized, my God, it takes me forever to remember how to do anything. That's an experience that you don't want people to have. Make the design proportional. Back on the don'ts. We talked about don't assume a need, don't use custom controls often. Don't use different solutions for different devices. The idea here is that you don't want your designs necessarily to have a completely different experience. You have a higher priced version and a lower priced version, and the overall experience of how you use it most likely needs to be consistent from a brand recognition point of view and from a user learning capability point of view. Sometimes, of course, the solution just needs to be different for a different device, but you want to keep it in mind that consistency across the devices does make a difference. And last but not least, make sure that you're not forcing interactivity in the design just to make it look different. Are you doing it simply to make it look different, or is it directly related to how the device is going to work in the user experience for what you're trying to solve? So what's in store with regards to UX and all the new mobile technologies that we're seeing? If you're following developments that are occurring in the mobile devices marketplaces, you've been hearing things like augmented realities and wearable devices and location and visual recognition capabilities. Just exactly how is all that going to impact the design of the user experience? Well, up next is Kevin Benedict, and he's going to talk to us about just that.
Thank you very much, Tom. Those were some very important insights on user experience. This is Kevin Benedict. And, to add what you just said, Tom, around a number of points here, brand impression. If we look at how mobility has replaced so many different storefronts with what people see on their mobile phones. So you pointed out some very powerful things there. But that just emphasizes how important the design is on your screen, because if that is your interface to the world, that has to look and represent what you want it to, from a branding, from a quality, from first impressions to user experience, everything. When you look at augmented reality, that's one of the biggest trends that we're seeing today out there. What does augmented reality mean? It means that when you look at something, you want additional information about it. I think back to watching NFL football or even college football, where you see the 10-yard line and you see additional information about the players, and they can rewind the play and show you how the play happened. All that is augmenting what really happened on the field. So it's additional information, and I think that's very important. Matter of fact, Google just announced that later this year they're going to have goggles or glasses. They look like sunglasses, but they will allow you to point your face or look to a particular direction. It knows the direction. It can look up and tell you what you're looking at with additional augmented information from within the Google databases and search engines. All of that is additional information. And we talk a lot about the consumerization of the enterprise, and this Augmented reality really points us that way and teaches us a lot on the enterprise side. For example, one of the rules that we know is that people using a mobile device don't want to read pages and pages of information. They want to see it in a split second because they may be just walking down the hall. They may be climbing the stairs. They may be on a ladder. They want to look down, get the information they need, and move on. And we're learning a lot today from some of the marketing skills we see out there and design skills around infographics, where you can take complex numbers and market trends and spreadsheets and put them in a very visually stimulating environment called infographics. That is very appealing to mobile designers of applications. There's another thing. There's a concept in field services out there called 4D field services. What do we mean by 4D? Well, 4D is really the GPS coordinates plus time, so height, width, length, and time. You take those four elements and put them on a map, and you can see where all of your resources are on that map and their job statuses, that's how it relates to time, and the distance from one job to another, the expected travel time, again reference to time. And if you can put that and color code that and use icons and all kinds of very creative approaches so that a field service manager in one brief look at his screen, whether it be a tablet screen or a smartphone, can see where his people are, what the job statuses are, all in a split second. We're learning a lot because people don't want to have to sort through raw data. They want to see the meaning of data so that you can get the meaning to make the right decision at the right time in real time. And that doesn't take going through volumes of raw data, but infographic-like design where you can see what everything means in just seconds. With that, I want to thank you very much, Tom, for inviting me to join you today.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. That was just fascinating. Now is the time for questions. I'm sure by now there's a number of them that have come to mind. Please remember you can put it in the text box right below, or hopefully at this point you'll be able to call in and actually ask the question that way. So once again, thank you very much. Now I'm going to turn everything over to my team at Endeavour.
Thank you so much, Tom and Kevin, for that elaborate explanation about user experience. We've received a lot of questions from you guys, and we're going to take them one by one. Our first question for today is user experience versus user interface, and we have Hitesh from Endeavour team to answer that for us.
Hey, thanks, Mahesh. So let me tell, user experience or UX design deals with the holistic experience of product or service, while user interface is all about information architecture as well as visual design, the way user interact with product or service, and it's a part of user experience. And as we discussed in webinar 2, UX is the sum of strategy, design research, information architecture, visual design, prototype, and user testing.
Our second question for today is, what is the objective of wireframe or information architecture?
Oh, cool. He must be an information architect. Okay, so information architecture is about structuring information in a way that allows people to first find information they need, second, find information they did not know they needed, third, make better decisions, and fourth, complete information tasks faster and more accurately. And the wireframe provides the structure, workflow, labeling, and navigation for system or a solution. And as we discussed also in webinar, wireframe is a decision-making activity for better, effective visibility.
Our next question for today is from a person who is very irritated why the technology changes every 15 days, and what are we going to do about that? So I rephrase the question for us. Every 15 days there is something new in the market. How do I update?
Yes, indeed, very good question. But it's not about update, it's about how we tackle it. So that's why design research is one of the important parts at Endeavour. And what we do here, we understand the ongoing trend scenario as research labs progress on user experience, as well as how institutes and a lot of organizations bring new dimensions and parameters in user experience. Nonetheless, these are the few steps people are doing to avoid this kind of hassle. First, while they're developing a user experience design, actually they think about scalability of solutions, scalability of need, and the future requirement that can absorb the new gesture or a new parameter introduced by technology or supported by. And another way of people are working is a user experience platform. It's nothing but it helps to create layered-based approach for user experience so that we can apply same thing to across range of platforms or devices or different resolutions.
Our next question for today is, I think, from a developer, talking about what mistakes and all. So here it is. What are the general mistakes that a UX designer makes while setting up a UX for an enterprise?
Yeah, I know I have done it too myself. But anyway, we at Endeavour, we have expertise in mobility UX because of our 10 years of rocking experience. And the main two topics we want to focus is first visual ergonomics, and second is what to focus. Let me about visual ergonomics. Visual ergonomics nothing, but it's all about focusing on layout or structure, a typography for readability and legibility, a proportion of elements, and color palette for better interface visibility. And generally, designers don't focus on the visual ergonomics because of certain things, and the overall application loses the usability aspect of it. And the second point, what to focus, or UX designer try to do so much, or probably to do everything together. And as you know, someone says rightly, when everything is prominent, nothing is prominent. So as per the Jacob Nielsen words, let's eliminate the nice to have and stick to the must have. As a designer, we need to focus on incremental disclosure of information, and that brings the wow factor in user experience. And as we have mentioned also in our webinar, user experience or UX is all about creating a brand awareness for better usability, effective utility, and better appeal or and desirability.
Oh, that's wonderful. We have a question from the business perspective of someone who's really worried about timelines. Does UX cause delay in delivery timelines?
Yeah, I've heard also many people. But at Endeavour, what we focus is on is, we consider UX is an integral part of deliverables, and hence we count it in project deliverables, and that's why we we are parallel with project deliverables.
Okay, our next question is from a person who is asking us to differentiate between UX, a conventional UX and a mobile UX.
So this is one of the wonderful questions I'm looking forward. See, actually, theoretically, there is not much difference in terms of conventional user experience that used for desktop or desktop software or desktop web versus mobile UX. Okay, but there are particular factors or parameters that affect overall mobility UX. First, space and environment. Second, user perception or commitment about application and the scenario. Third, one of the most important factors is it's a mobile device, so it's influencing environmental factors to a user, as well as there are so many what you can say gates for App Store so that it gets filtered over there itself. And another way of doing it, a lot of people uses today social media and other ratings, to filter out their apps and their usability. So these are the many factors actually affecting user experience, and we need to take in this consideration while we are developing for mobile devices. Rest of the parameter like information architecture, visual design, user scenario, mental models, everything is same. But these are the main few parameters that affect on mobility UX.
Oh, that's wonderful. We have another question here, you know, which says, what are the parameters that need to be taken into consideration for UX of consumer and enterprise app? Basically, differentiation between consumer application and enterprise application from the UX perspective.
Wow. Um, let me put in this way. As per Endeavor's experience and our UX lab experience is what we have seen is a separation comes from a different requirement, set of requirements that leads to a separate route of consumer app and enterprise app. Let me take you first point, a scale. Particularly consumer application is all about scaling in terms of number of users for a single application. So for the company, the goal is how to increase their user base. Example, Facebook or Google File System. While in enterprise, usually have a relatively fixed number of users, and the focus is more on business needs and objectives, or you can say functionality. As well as enterprise always focuses on minimizing the development cost, maintenance cost, and admin cost. Second point is experience. If you see in consumer app world, who is the king? The king is, we can define this way, who is the best engaging the user, and that is all about engagement aspect of user is the king in consumer app world, while in enterprise the functionality rocks. The third point is security. Yes, as everybody knows, we need security for consumer app as well as enterprise app. But in consumer app, user usually have one access, while in enterprise it is a multiple hierarchy basis access. And the fourth and one of the most important factor is in enterprise mobility and consumer mobility application is integration. In consumer app, integration happens very organically to create simpler, lighter, and user-centric, intuitive application container. While in enterprise app, integration has to be thought very carefully because of complexity of technologies and the cost involved, as well as handling the data and security purpose. And all these parameters play a crucial role while you are designing enterprise app versus consumer app.
Oh, that's great. Now, this is a question I think has hit all of you. Uh, what about the mobile devices that come up every day? Every day we hear of a new device coming up. So how do we adapt an application's UI to a cross-platform business environment?
Yeah, I mean, I came across with this question so many times, and we are still working on it, and we have a very good solutions too. As of now, in Endeavour, we are focusing on 2 points. First, by creating a standard guideline for particular application. What do I mean? We need to understand the HCI guidelines of different devices, or you can say iOS or Android or BlackBerry, to derive holistic gestural elements for application. The first thing. And second most important thing is consistent user interface. User interface, as I said, it's all about how user is interacting with the product or service. And we should use these interactive elements in proportional resolution of the device and its navigation.
By now, I think every one of you, you want to have a UX lab at your place. So you're thinking, why? Oh, cool. Let's what are the business goals? What do we need to do, and how do we focus? So we have a very good question here about that. How can we build a cool, innovative application while meeting our business goals for the enterprise?
Oh, yes, it's definitely a cool question. But here, we focus on at Endeavor, one thing is called design research, as I mentioned in earlier questions too. Actually, design research helps us to focus on first the objective of the application, as well as it helps us to narrate it down the desirability of application too. And the second thing is, it is one of the most important factor in today's competitive world is setting up a benchmark. Benchmarking of features and how to import features or positive features from consumer apps to enterprise mobility. This is one of the major considerations. And third aspect is interactivity. An interactive communication channel should be borrowed from consumer applications such as Wired magazine app for iPad to enterprise mobility solutions. And sometimes, as I said earlier in questions, many people or UX designers try to do everything on one screen or one go.
Okay. The next question we have is, UX is so great and it's so nice and everything, but will it overpower the brand? Will the current UX that we develop for our enterprise, will that be stronger than the brand name? So let's rephrase this. Will UX overpower the brand?
Nothing like it, Maher. UX and brand goes hand to hand. It Endeavour, in some of the cases, we follow a digital guideline for of our clients or enterprise, or else in other cases, we also develop a design that suits particular enterprise on their application. So hence, branding and UX run hand in hand.
That's great. That's great. We have a lot of business aspect to this. So uh, a lot of people are asking us what we do because we've been experts in the field of user experience and we have a lot of experience. And well, what is it that we follow? So the question we were asked is, do you follow any mobile UX principles?
Yes, we also follow UX principles here at Endeavour. We have our own 9 principles, and based on that, we given weightage to different applications to come up with proper or desirable output of user experience.
Okay. Our next question for today is, what do you think about the role of UX in an organization? Is it a cost center? Definitely, this comes to a lot of people's mind, because we have to set up a new UX lab. We want to be like expertise like Endeavour, and we want to give our customers the best that they have, and everything, and so on, so forth. But the question that arises is, does this consume a lot of money?
Maher, let me tell you, but business is all about money or numbers, and yes, when you invest, it is a cost. So in today's world, user experience is a cost. But let me thank here Steve Jobs and many pioneers who actually gave user experience a new value in organization world. And actually, user experience in today's information technology world added lot of value in terms of strategy as well as in terms of product and services to ultimately bring a new customer experience. And I'm sure down the line it will be more than just a UX deliverable.
Oh, Hitesh, we've heard a lot about your UX workshop. Would you like to share a little about that?
Yes, why not? We actually running couple of series on user experience in a mobility field where we are sharing what kind of principles we follow, how we are giving a priority, and as well as we have a generic methodology to come up with better user experience in mobility field. So how we do about it and how we do tailor-made approach for particular clients and their needs, objective of application, etc. And based on that, we actually dedicated that particular process to particular outcome for better usability, desirability, and as you say, utility.
Oh, that's superb. So this is the key for our customers. You want to be a customer of Endeavour. These are the plus points that you have. Our next question for today is, how can we design the optimum user experience for smartphones and tablets?
Yeah, man. Let me tell you frankly, one and first, first and most important point is we need to understand the SCI guidelines of particular devices or technology. And the second thing is the usability. usability is one of the single most important parameters that gives a hit or miss to application. And again, second thing is the branding. We create story to develop a brand, to talk about communication. And as you have seen also in our webinar, we have raised a point called user experience is all about creating brand awareness.
Oh, we have another question on return of investment. Definitely, if you want to invest a little cost into the user experience, there has to be some ROI. So, our next question is dedicated to that. What is the ROI for UX to be placed in an organization?
Yes, when somebody is putting money, they expect something in return. So, what I can sum up like this, by implementing user experience in product and services or in organization, we can reduce the overall cost of projects, we can increase the productivity, or we can increase the effectivity or utility of a product or service or solution. We can help really sales and marketing team to increase their sales or target, as well as we help clients and our customers to build a brand, a loyalty, and also we help them to increase the brand advocacy. And nonetheless, it's always helpful to make an organization to positioning themselves with compare the peers in this competitive market.
Okay. I think we're a little short on time, and really, thank you, Hitesh, for answering all the questions. I know we've missed out a lot of questions from your side. Thank you for the huge amount of response we've received. But we were not able to answer your question, but you can soon expect detailed answers to all of those in your mailbox. If you have any more queries, please email us at TechEndeavour at events@techendeavour.com. That is events@techendeavour.com. We have slight conclusion from our end.
Let me summarize, what is the objective of this seminar, or let me put a conclusion on it. See, as per the Gartner study says, mobility is the new era of the information world, and everybody wants to be in it. But as of today, this space is ruled by chaos because of several parameters like a trend, upcoming technology, non-standard guidelines, a benchmarking attitude of business, competition, so forth, and etc. At the same time, due to market presence of numerous mobile devices in terms of resolution, hardware capability, new technology that also affect in great way on user experience aspect of it. And this problem is compounding day by day because of numerous way of exploring user experience and its definition. That's what our effort is, to set a stage what we have learned since last 10 years in mobility.
Oh, that's superb. Now about the surprise. Remember at the start of the webinar, we said we have a little surprise for all our attendees today. Oh, well, we are proposing a free UX analysis activity for all our valued participants today. This will be a 4-hour one-on-one activity where we will analyze your UX needs based on Endeavor's UX lab processes. Remember the 9 processes we spoke to you about? That. Please feel free to reach out to us at info@techendeavour.com for any more details. The webinar recordings will be made available on techendeavour.com/webinar. Oh, and about the UX analysis, we have limited seating, so it's on first come, first serve basis. I would like to extend my gratitude to Kevin Benedict for sharing his expertise and thoughts on UX, and Tom for such an enthralling overview of the amazing field of user experience. Last but not the least, I would like to also thank our attendees, without whom this webinar wouldn't have been such a success. We appreciate your time and hope to see you at our forthcoming webinars. Have a good day. Thank you.